Alright, let's check our journal real quick. Let's see. Lovely picture without the smile. After leaving Isabella in Zachary's care, Rebecca informed Ashton about her current condition and asked for updates about the case. The investigation wasn't going well, much to Ashton's frustration. On her way out of the hospital, she overheard a girl crying, looking for her mother. Coming home feels like a lame attempt at normalcy. A false return to it. Although what surprises me more is how easy falling back into my usual routine is after I forcefully tucked all of my worries away. For the rest of the afternoon, against what I've told Zachary before leaving, I've busied myself with every unimportant, mindless task I can get a hold of. What can I do? Sleep simply isn't that easy to come by at the moment. By the time the sun sits well over the horizon, much of the work I've got scheduled today has been finished. All that's left for me to deal with is the mail. Even Isabella's family has been given notice of the accident, regardless of how I felt about doing so this morning. It didn't take too much effort, actually. The words I've been turning around my head, the same ones I've been dreading to deliver, have long since lost their meaning after that little call with Ashton. Now they're just phrases, syllables, meaning nothing. Her mum took it well in spite of that. But if there's more to the unruffled reaction she gave, it's one thing she doesn't let show.
So very much like Isabella.
Is this because of the kind of life she has back home? Not that I'll ever fully understand. I'm my parents' only child. We aren't well off, but so far I've lived a relatively easy life. I didn't have to think about bills or food for the next day, or paying for any siblings' tuition on top of my own, or supporting a sick father's medication. All I have to worry about were my grades, if it had gained Mum and Da's approval, or what we'd be having for dinner. When put next to hers, they all pale in comparison. They look less like problems and more like petty issues this way.
Petty issues?
But as unimportant as it all sounds, sometimes its ugly head rears at the most inappropriate moments. And sometimes they come through your mailbox in the form of a fancy-looking letter, pretty ribbons and all. Whoever sent this has spent silly money on the envelope alone. Verging on ridiculous, really. I can already imagine Isabella wrinkling her nose as she sees this. Then she'll complain about unnecessary expenses and rich people problems. I'm almost afraid to touch it myself, as if simply brushing a hand against its crisp surface will be enough to put a crease on it, and it'll be a terrible slight to the sender. But as extravagant as I find this, it isn't really the first time I've received one. Most of the time, it's not even for me, so who am I to complain? Either way, no look of surprise crosses my face once I flip the envelope over to see my parents' names written in a neat script.
Nothing new, then.
Their years in the academe naturally brought with it various connections. People from other fields, art, science, business, politics, you name it. This one, though, gives off a much personal vibe. I might be able to skip this, we'll see. Letters like this usually come from old students. People who've grown fond of my parents, and they, in turn, treat like children of their own. Okay, no. This is all counted as new. I wondered if it would be because of the phone call to Bella's family. I've only met a few of them. Most have moved on to become successful in their chosen careers, and little letters like this are their way of expressing gratitude. It's one thing Mum and Da are proud of. Rightfully so, and I'm happy for them. But there are times I wish they'll remember they have a daughter here. The real one. Not that it's of any importance now. It's not like they didn't raise me well and provided for me. They did. I wouldn't be where I am now if it weren't for their hard work. And like a dutiful child, I do everything I can to give back. Even if it's as small a thing as letting them know they've got another mail waiting for them. The phone rings for a good minute before someone answers. Mum, her voice as warm as I remember.
Becca?
Hi, Mum. How's the conference going?
Well enough. Until your dad sprained his ankle.
Oh no, is it bad?
I'm alright. In case anyone in this family cares to listen, I'm alright. Very much alive, darling.
And there you have it. He'll be up and walking in a few weeks, don't worry. We're going to have to extend our stay here until it heals, though. Is something the matter?
Nothing big. Just that mail arrived for you. I got it last night, but things happened.
A lie. Thankfully, she doesn't notice. Although, if I'm going to be honest, a small part of me yearns for her to do so and ask me about it. But I put down that idea almost as soon as it surfaces. I shouldn't make them fret. They're busy.
What does it say?
Raise your glasses, give cheers to the good times, blah, blah.
Becca manners. That isn't how I taught you to read.
Sorry. You are cordially... it's an invitation, Mum, for a housewarming party. From, Hannah?
The name rings a bell, though at the moment I can't recall when or where I've heard it recently. It must be nothing too important if I didn't bother committing it to memory. There are a lot of Hannahs in the world, so who knows?
Hannah.
She also wrote you a note, Mum. It says you used to be her private tutor at the Evans mansion, and that she misses you and would love to see you two again.
It makes my heart clench to read another openly say those words to them. The same ones I want to tell them. I want to see you too. It's been years since we've been together as family, and if there's one thing that hasn't changed from childhood, it's that Mum and Da are still busy with their respective careers. Out of the country, away on some meeting or symposium, sometimes for months on end. It only grew more frequent with the years until I'm old enough to live on my own. I'd like to think that's how I've become independent at such an early age. They've always praised me for that. At times, I wish they didn't.
Evans? Oh, I remember now. Honey, it's Hannah. Hannah Evans. Remember? Bright girl, 2 years older than Becca?
Yeah, she's possessed by a ghost now.
Didn't she get married a few years ago? 7 now, I think. But, they grow up so fast, these kids.
Yeah, she invited us to that too. Fonte de Medici. But we missed that one because you had to present your paper in Singapore.
We did send her a note after. Still a shame we couldn't attend, though. What is it about this time?
She sent another invite for a housewarming party. Becca, when is it?
This Friday, Mum.
Oh, that's too bad. We'd love to be there, but Da's not in a condition to go walking around. I guess we'd have to decline again. I really miss that girl.
I could go in your place.
I let it slip without thinking. Personally, I've never been fond of gatherings, regardless of how simple people make it seem. But if there's one thing I hate hearing, that disappointed note in Mum's voice always ranks first. Whether it's directed at me or some other thing doesn't matter.
Are you sure? Don't you have work this Friday?
The event will be in the evening, Mum. It shouldn't take anything away from my schedule. It's all right. The invite's for 2 people. I can bring someone with me so things don't get boring.
I see. Maybe you can also invite Ashton?
Mum, that's a sure no from him. He hates attending parties. But I'll see what I can do. If not, I can always bring... I can always go alone. I'm a big girl now,
Yeah, I don't think Bella will be in a position to attend.
I can handle these things. This isn't too much of a big deal.
Okay, if it's not going to be a big problem for you, I don't see why not. We owe you this one, darling.
No problem, Mum. I'll even say hi to Hannah for you.
Please do. And let her know we'd love to see her once we're back in the city. Leave her our number or something.
I will.
But you know, the 2 of you would have become really good friends. Don't you remember? You met with her once. If my memory serves me right, you were 12 then?
This, too, I can't recall. It's probably one of those meetings where we only talked a bit before going our ways. If she did leave an impression, I'm pretty sure I would have written about it somewhere, or at least recognized her name. As it is, the only few people I remember clearly from that time in my life is Ashton and Mandy, to some extent. Mum must have sensed my confusion because she laughs.
Don't push yourself too hard, darling. Really? It felt like having 2 daughters back then. Sometimes I wish they didn't send her away to boarding school. But, well, you know how often that goes with them. Still, try talking to her while you're there.
We'll see. I'll let you know what happens after.
I'm looking forward to it, darling. Take care of yourself.
Will do. You too, Mum. Bye. Tell Da to be careful next time.
She chuckles then. A hearty one, tender and always light on my ears. She may be a stern teacher, but this is the part of her I love the most. The sound of it still echoes even as our call comes to an abrupt end, bringing with it a memory from so many years ago, when life and responsibilities that accompany adulthood are things far from our minds. If given the chance, I'd love to go back to those. I don't dwell on it, though, shaking it all away almost as soon as the memory forms a clear picture in my head. I've always wondered how Isabella can easily pretend everything's normal over a phone call, then bounce back to her usual self immediately after. I've seen her do it plenty of times. For me, it just drains whatever energy I have. Soon the exhaustion I've been keeping at bay since last night rushes over me, creeping to my tired bones, weighing heavily on my sore muscles. Here and now, I allow it. And with another night I'm about to spend on her bedside, watching over her, waiting for that tiny bit of miracle to happen, I can't afford to stay like this. Bloody hell, Zachary will know in a heartbeat if I didn't follow up on that promise. So, with another sigh, I put everything at the back of mind and tread back to my room. A long night waits ahead of me. 4 hours later, I'm heading back out after a short nap, ready and dressed for a different waiting game at the hospital. An empty traveling bag dangles freely in my hand as I head straight for Isabella's room first, unlocking the door with a copy of the key. She lent it years ago, after I complained about the mess and offered my help in cleaning up. I thought the gesture was completely unnecessary back then. After all, I could always knock. But she never did bother taking them from me, always returning it or turning away from the conversation whenever I insist. At one point, I've simply stopped trying to hand it back to her. Who would have thought I'd be using it for this purpose?
Isabella, I'm coming into your flat, all right? Your aunt asked me to bring you a few of your things.
Oh, Becca.
Don't worry. I won't touch that thing you've been hiding under your bed.
What? Laughable, this vain attempt at courtesy when there are no ears on the other side to listen to them. So without waiting for the answer she's not here to give, I push the door open and step inside. What is under the bed? Her unit's still a mess. Instant noodle cups on the table, a pile of clothes on one side, paper strewn about everywhere, and an unkempt bed among other things. This much is a given. Will always be a given. I've been here several times already, and I still wonder how she can function like a human being with the place in this state. She didn't even bother turning off her telly last night before leaving. Now it's filling the room with even more depressing news.
The authorities are still trying to find the cause of death for all the victims. Early investigation revealed most of them were employed under Briar Realty Corporation at the time of death. Meanwhile, BRC has refused to comment on this.
Sighing, I reach for the remote to turn it off. No more of that. We've got plenty of negativity going around us right now. Besides, she'll definitely complain about the electric bill if I just leave it, even if it's entirely her fault. However, that's neither here nor there. This little detour isn't for this. It's all her fault for getting run over by that car and leaving the telly on. It's for her aunt. A little request from her if we can bring a few of Isabella's stuff. Hi, thanks for letting me know about this. I'll be by in a few days. Just need to sort things out with my work. If it won't be too much to ask, could you bring a few of her stuff to the hospital? Only for 2 or 3 days so I can head straight there. Thanks. Just for 2 or 3 days to make caring for her easier once she takes over from us. She doesn't elaborate much. The message itself is short and direct, no mention of the accident or even Isabella's name. But the mere lack of it holds enough gravity. It speaks of the things we all dread facing in the next few days, and little truths we'll have to ease into after. Both of us know this isn't a one-day thing. It may last weeks, months. Bloody hell, some even continue on for years. Thinking of those numbers alone drains the optimism out of me, but I refuse to wallow on them. Think of what Zachary said instead. He's right. He has a point we've all known about her years ago. She's stubborn.
And she might make it through because of it.
The odds are, so to speak, astronomical. Never tell me the odds. But she's beaten worse before. She might not even need that miracle the doctors so blatantly told us to avoid hoping for. If she tries hard enough, she'll probably win over this with willpower and nothing else. If that ever happens, as unsightly as it may make me seem, I will laugh at their faces. Just imagining how it might go brings a smile to my face for the first time. Somehow, it calms, and the whole task of packing what little essentials she might need becomes less of a chore. In less than half an hour, I'm done. Before leaving, I spare Isabella's room one last glance, disturbingly quiet now without her in it. I'll get a chance to scold her for this mess later. Then we'll argue about it like we often do, like normal. But for the moment, my concerns are best left here. She doesn't need those right now. You lied about turning off the television, Rebecca. I couldn't help but notice. Back at Salemwell, Rebecca Gales received a housewarming invitation addressed to her parents. After informing them about it and getting some rest, she visited Isabella's apartment to pack the clothes and other things they'd need at the hospital. Even before, it never crossed my mind I'd ever feel apprehension over a hospital visit. No one in my family has experienced illness to warrant an overnight vigil, and when a relative did pass away here some years ago, I was still all too young to commit the details to memory. I recall the tears, but the emotions simply felt too distant to stick. In truth, everything I remember of hospitals are the bright lights, the cozy private rooms, and the doctor's tender smiles.
Until last night.
Now the lights glare, shining far too brightly, intensely against my eyes. The smile from the on-duty nurse founders under every single uncertainty. The room at the end of this ward looms forebodingly ahead of me. This being the second day has thankfully dulled the edge to that. Somewhat. Actually, I meant to look at this. Hold on. When was the argument between Becca and Ash in the hospital? Was that further back? Did we not write about it? Maybe we didn't write about it. I thought there was an argument picture. I guess there it is. Okay, so that was earlier today. Really? Huh. I thought that was going to be tonight. That might be a mistake. I just feel like that is yet to come. Anyway, there's still the voice at the back of my mind, whispering, expecting the worst, while hoping to all that is good in the world that I won't find an empty bed and an equally graver news upon my return. But I push these all down as far as I can the minute I near her room. It won't do for Zachary to see me this way. He'll send me back home for sure. The latter won't do either. I'm not going to let him, when all the help we can get will only be between the two of us until her aunt arrives. After that call with Ashton, with the way he sounded, I don't think he plans on showing up here. He probably thinks he'll be more useful out there. I know he's just doing his job, but it almost seems like he's using it as an excuse this way. What exactly is there to avoid here? He's so willing to face everything head on, but this? How absurd. Regardless, whatever the answers to those will have to wait along with many others as I give the door to Isabella's room a mild push.
Hey, scaredy cat?
It is now. Okay. So the timing in the journal is messed up. So it is... Okay, I'm glad to see this from her perspective. I figured that... Because Zachary's asleep, in case you forgot. Zachary's asleep right now. And he woke up afterwards, and Becca was just in a mood when she came into the room. And I feel she overheard like some confession type stuff, and then was just not in a great place. My hand stills. My whole body freezes, stopping me almost a hair's breadth from fully opening the door.
Ash?
A frown soon follows my confusion. Aww. That is so beautiful. Gosh, I am such a hardcore Ashton Isabella shipper. They're just so perfect. Look at them. Look at him. Look at her. I'm sorry, Becca. I'm sorry. It was never going to be you. There, settled on the edge of the bed, is the last person I've expected to see here no mere seconds ago. Sitting almost too comfortably at that, with a small smile grazing his face. As if last night's events haven't taken a huge toll on him. But it's obvious. His fatigue is there. In the tired lilt in his voice, the detached look in his eyes, and the manner his shoulders droop. He's barely keeping himself together. Just looking at him right now makes me regret ever thinking he's simply making excuses out of his work. I should have known better. An apology immediately forms in my head, already at the tip of my tongue. Although before I can even string two words together, he continues. He has yet to notice my presence, and I've yet to make myself known. But somehow, something in the way he speaks next prevents me from doing so, despite the casual note he takes. Something anyone, including me, isn't supposed to ever hear from him. Something deeply personal.
Really, how long are you planning to stay like that? You've been criticizing my sleeping habits, yet look what you're doing. I hope you know Zach and Rebecca are already losing sleep over this.
Ashton pauses, holding the moment, allowing his words to seep into the air. He means that as a reprimand, or I assume he does. It sounds like one from the way he has phrased it. Yet the tone of his voice betrays their very essence, and not long into that silence he chuckles. Low, close to breathless, and if I listen closely, I'd say there might have been a hint of a long-held fondness in it.
But this is how you've always been, isn't it? Clumsy, careless, a scatterbrain and a crybaby, always getting in trouble. Always getting us in trouble.
He trails off. Another pause. Another held breath. Then he sighs.
Always making me worry.
Ah, the trembling smile. And with it, the air inexplicably shifts to something gentler. Warmer. A quiet little thing filling the room that neither seeks to stifle nor confine. Instead, it only lingers in the silence, bearing simple truths no mere words or grand gestures can express. When he finally chooses to break it, he does so with all the care in the world. Softly, in hushed tones, fragile in itself.
But those things...
Because sometimes all it needs is not a thunderous declaration, but a single fleeting second of small smiles, tender touches, and sincere honesty.
Those things... I love those.
Ah, a truth long held. You confess now that she can't even hear you, but maybe she can. Maybe the doctors are only speculating. Maybe she can still hear you.
And everything. Everything that's you.
I knew she overheard him confess. I knew it. I just knew when she came in a huff. Like, ah, man. She overheard him talking to her and stuff. I knew it. Ugh. Here in this room, amidst the faint whir of machines and the soft moonlight streaming from the windows, in this little space, those words roar louder than the briefest of sighs, and that lone second forms a memory. One he'll probably keep even after this moment fades with time. One I'm intruding on, never meant for my eyes to see or my ears to hear. The prayer that comes at the end of it is never for me to behold either.
This place feels a whole lot emptier without you. So please... if you can somehow hear me, come back.
Aw, but I can't bring myself to turn away. Even as silence once again sweeps into the room and only the beeping of the machines remains. Even as he, himself, cowers under what everything he said stands for.
This is stupid.
Because I understand, with the most painful clarity, the other truth this scene proffers. What the tiny gleam in Ashton's eyes, his darting glances, and his kind smiles convey. Little things, little gestures. To others it may seem nothing, but to him it means the whole world, because it's the only way he can say everything without fumbling or losing his nerves. Right from the very start. I know. I've always had an inkling. The thought has always been there. Hiding, tucked, and neatly sealed away at the back of my mind in the same manner he keeps his own secrets close to himself. Which is why there's no jolt in me, no surprise. Just a slow, aching, burning realization of a truth long held. Of feelings never meant to be for me. It's funny that it's here when happens afterwards. But anyway. Upon returning to the hospital, Rebecca lost her eyes and found Ashton inside the room, the last person she expected to see sitting by Isabella's bedside. As she was about to head in, she overheard a conversation never meant for her ears. And yet, in the end, a flash of anger still surges within me. It clenches, pierces, leaving my heart torn and numb, draining every color and noise from the world around me. The bag in my hand hangs weightless in my hand as the magnitude of those words gradually closes in on me. You didn't want to hear this. You didn't want to see this. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't have gone here. But before I can move and force my feet to take the first few steps to save myself, Zachary's voice echoes from the room, deep and still rough with what's apparently sleep. Utterly clueless of what has just transpired only minutes ago. How I wish I can be as oblivious to it as him right now.
Hey, Ash.
Everything snaps back into place at its sound, and the veil lifts from my mind. All of my reasons for being here rushes back to me along with it, no longer held by that familiar, bitter feeling slowly consuming my thoughts. But it's still there, coiled in a tight knot in my chest, simply waiting for another chance to unfurl itself.
How long have you been here?
Just came in a few seconds ago.
Lies! You sit on a throne of lies!
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear you.
Figures. It's not a problem. You probably need to rest anyway.
You're the one talking. You look like shit.
So I've been told.
Seriously, how long have you been up?
18, 20 hours or so? It doesn't matter. I'll get some shut-eye later. Where's Rebecca?
Funny how he remembers me now. Oh, girl. Not a few moments ago, he's unknowingly taken that one little thing I hold dear and allowed the burden of his bloody sentiments to crush it. Oh, man. I mean, I understand Rebecca in this moment. I've felt those feelings, I have thought these thoughts, and logically in my head have been like, you're being completely stupid, but the heart feels what the heart feels. And it's dumb. And you can kick yourself afterwards for things you thought and things you said and things you did, but I totally understand her in this moment, even though I'm just like, it's not... There's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do. After all these years, I'm the one that becomes the afterthought. But I take this mention of my name as my cue to compose myself and hide all of these somewhere safe. Preferably somewhere no one else will find. Girl, you were so obvious. I knew immediately. We were in Zachary's chapter. That was 2 chapters ago. And I was like, you overheard him confessing to her, didn't you? Because I'm a good observationalist, like Ashton Frey. So there you go. Except Ashton can't observe girls in love with him. That's the only downside. Alright, let's do this. Just like how it has always been. Ultimately, this isn't what I came here for.
I sent her home early, but she'll be back too.
At the light rap I give the door, Zachary breaks off mid-sentence at once. Their eyes are on me when I slide into the room, though their attention doesn't really stay. Soon the bag I'm carrying catches their eye, and they're both shooting me bewildered looks. Zachary, in particular, appears about to say something, but can't quite place how he'll articulate it. A swift glance at Ashton tells me the same thing, though the question in his eyes comes off more passive, muted. I raise a hand at them before they can say something about it.
It's not mine.
The light mood changes as soon as I've finished. They know. I don't have to spell it out for them. I don't think they want me to, when that reality's just lying a few inches away from us. Either way, the atmosphere doesn't last. The world isn't done rendering my heart useless, as it turns out. Even Zachary, clueless as he is, gapes at me with a worried crease on his forehead. He has the right to be. The bitter tone my voice takes once the conversation turns elsewhere surprises me, too.
No, I'll take it from here.
You don't have to do that. Zachary and I can handle this for a few days.
Both of you already had your turn with this. It wouldn't hurt to have another person helping out.
This isn't some sort of a competition, Ash. We're doing this because someone has to be here for her.
I'm not making this one. I just volunteered, didn't I?
Despite knowing Ashton only means well with his offer, hearing it directly from him, seeing him throw his affections around as if no one knows, it stings. It burns.
Don't you have an investigation to finish?
And Zach has freelance gigs in line for the next few days. You have students to teach. Don't push it, Becca.
Yet, when all is said and done, the only thing I do is beat a hasty retreat, while that green-eyed monster rages inside me.
All 3 of us have things to take care of on our own, but between us, it should be easier to find some time to...
Fine. Good.
This isn't the proper place for it. With my words too strained, too quiet, no amount of anger would get my own feelings across to him. 17 years, and it never once did. What more now?
Do what you want.
It ends with 3 steps and a hastily shoved bag. In all honesty, I'm not entirely sure what I'm expecting will show in Ashton's face. Anger to match mine? Confusion, maybe? Or perhaps regret? It certainly isn't the straight-faced one he has now. However, more than that, beyond the impassive mask he wears, in the passing minute I lock gazes with him, I see it. And the glimpse of it, out of everything tonight, is what shatters all that remains of my restraint. I don't wait for him to say anything. Quickly, I tear my eyes away from his and march towards the door, ignoring the worried glances Zachary shoots my way. My heart may be far from fragile, but neither of them needs to see it break. What a great line. The door closes with a soft click, but for a long moment I remain standing amidst the empty hall, taking in the silence, listening for anything that'll dare break it, waiting for that hammer to finally fall or for the ground to swallow me whole. None of it happens, of course, and for what's perhaps the 100th time in the span of a second, I'm left to recall what I saw in Ashton. It's not hearing the thoughtfully worded admission of his own feelings that did it, nor seeing those unguarded, yearning glances he gave her, but facing the faraway look in his eyes and who he has always seen past me, past the person who has always stood in front of him. I never had him in the first place.
I love him.
The words itself leave a bitter aftertaste in my mouth despite wanting them to be heard for so long. Suddenly, at their mere utterance, the world goes too still, too bright, too sharp, too cold. Ever so slowly, a chill seeps into my heart and settles there, replacing a warmth I no longer remember feeling. Distant, much like the only memories I have of this place. With nothing else to cling to, I run. Behind me, the door once again creaks open and Zachary calls after me. Cordial, friendly, and utterly unsuspecting, poor Zachary. I ignore all of it, because even after all this, his isn't the voice I want to hear. I make it out of the hospital in a flurry of steps, my mind abuzz with thoughts and emotions in turmoil. Ignoring the courteous smiles every staff member shoots my way or the voice shouting after me. My footfalls hit hard against the pavement, each stride a stark refusal, each distance I put a continued denial. More than once a passing stranger would give me looks. Is it pity? Consternation? Scorn? Or dismay?
It doesn't matter now, does it?
All I hear are the voices inside my head, jeering, mocking, while the rest of the world blurs around me. I'm the one who has always been by his side. I'm the one who knew more about him than anyone. Why couldn't it have been me? But the universe doesn't have an answer for that, and neither does anyone. So I run, until everything fades away from my mind, until my breathing goes labored, until my legs buckle, feet catching on loose stone and the world tilting sideways at long last. A yelp comes from my mouth, but the pain I'm expecting, hoping for, doesn't. When awareness returns to me, in a rush of sounds and colors, it isn't his hand that grips my arm, nor the sharp gleam usually in his eyes that I see. Far, a striking contrast. This one's softer, kinder. The worry slightly mars his voice. There's nothing in it but genuine concern. Zach is best boy. I'm sorry. Zachary will always be best boy. He's the sweetest cinnamon bun. He's like, I don't know what's going on, but hey, I saw you crying. I came to see if you needed a hug or something. I'm here for you. I can also cook something if you need it. Zachary's. It's always a wonder how they even became friends.
Easy there, ma'am.
So respectful. He doesn't waste any time, not even to wait for some form of gratitude from me, and quickly pulls me to my feet. However, it isn't until he draws a handkerchief from his pocket and gingerly hands it to me that I glance up at him, searching for an explanation. Who carries a handkerchief in this day and age?
for your, face.
Ah! He makes a vague gesture around his cheeks, his movements small and a bit awkward before letting his arm fall and hang at his side, suddenly too afraid to point it out. He does not retract his hand offering the handkerchief, though, merely giving me a sheepish shrug and another smile when I finally lift a hand up my cheek and it comes away wet. Oh. I cast him another look, wary, unsure. But all he has for me is the same accepting smile. There's a question behind it, but for the moment he holds off. So with another indrawn breath, I take the offered cloth, if only to keep my hands occupied while I put myself together.
Thanks.
No problem. Take your time if you want, and, I'll just be here. Pretending I didn't see anything, and, take your time.
Zachary's polite enough to avert his gaze, and only when the last of the tears have been wiped away does he say anything.
You okay? The floor almost had you there.
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, thanks again. Sorry about that.
The words ring hollow even to my ears, and I'm not certain either if they're meant to be an apology for all his troubles, or for showing him the pathetic side of me. Nevertheless, he accepts them.
Nah, it is cool.
It's cool.
Surprised me, though. Didn't think you could run that fast. But you don't look really well right now. Something happened?
No, nothing. Nothing important. I was just a little shaken, I think, from all that running. I'll be fine, Zachary.
Well, don't push yourself too hard, alright? I'm sure Bella will understand if you ever decide to take a break. Hell, she wouldn't want us fussing over like this. If you aren't feeling up to it, just say so. Let Ashton and I take over now. It ain't a big deal.
Oh, I'm sure Ashton would love that.
Ooh. I like just the ever so slight squint in his eye, like, Regret follows the second the heated words leave my mouth and the light mood inevitably shatters. As black as my mood might have been, Zachary doesn't deserve to receive the brunt of it. No one does. Even Ashton. Yet all I see in my head right now is the image of him seating inside that room, spilling his heart out unlike he ever did for me, wearing such sincerity I've never seen in him before. The concerned expression returns to Zachary's face, and with it are the hundreds of questions he's been avoiding to ask. Under his honest scrutiny, I balk. I look away before he can see past this and catch a glimpse of an ugly side of me. But considering how well I've handled this so far, I won't be shocked if he already thinks less of me.
Rebecca, is everything really alright?
I bet he already knows the answer to that. Regardless of appearances, Zach can be quite as perceptive as Ashton. It's part of the reason why they became friends in the first place. Frankly, I don't understand why he's still making an effort to ask. For the sake of being polite? Responding to that will only open a whole different can of worms. He should also know that. What a mess. The best thing to do now is to simply end this. What do you even know? No, I didn't mean that, Zachary. I didn't mean it. Sweet bean. Regardless of his good intentions, Zachary doesn't deserve to be caught in the same kind of chaos my mind is in right now.
I'm sorry, Zachary. I didn't mean that.
Smile. Bottle it up. Hide it where other people can't judge, even if it leaves me wanting for a more explosive outburst. At least this way, there's no guilt apart from the one I have to suffer myself.
I know you don't. You're actually scarier than that when you mean it.
Am I? Really?
Only a bit. A wee bit. Don't take that personally, please. I mean, you're a really nice person, but you also have to deal with Ash and Bella sometimes. That takes a lot of patience, especially Ash.
The blush.
And you're a teacher, so I guess...
Zachary?
Zachary?
Yes, ma'am?
You don't have to say anything to make me feel better about myself. I'm tougher than that.
Oh, well, I was just...
Besides, I've already heard most of those from Isabella. I'm used to it. Trust me.
Zachary's eyebrows are drawn together when I glance back at him, his mouth opening and closing in a weak attempt to answer my reassurances. This probably isn't where he wants to take this little talk, but the turn it took left him no other choice. Much like how he found himself thrust in this position. Out of all people, he now has to be the one standing in the middle to fix things, even when no such obligations have been handed to him. bloody, he didn't need to follow me. But that's just how he is. This is an unintentional mistake on my part, too, yes, though I still can't help but feel responsible. The best apology I can give him right now is a light pat to his arm. A bit half-hearted coming from me, but I do it still. It's not like I have any other thing left I can offer.
Look, Zachary. All of this, it's probably just the stress talking. Don't worry about me. We've all been on the edge since the news broke. I haven't even gotten a decent sleep since it started, and it still doesn't seem like things will be slowing down anytime soon. Maybe it's a good thing Ashton volunteered when he did. At least now we have a few hours to rest, yes? Take your own advice and go get a break yourself, okay?
I throw in another smile at him, for good measure, but it falters the second my eyes meet his. It's that look again, the slight squint. The one too honest. If I hold it for a moment longer, I'll probably end up saying things I shouldn't, more than what I'm willing to disclose at the moment. Because despite wanting to get these feelings across, these are also ones I've harbored longer than any. If Ashton won't hear them, won't have them, then neither has the world any right to do so. I'm more than happy to cling to these if it'll keep the misery at bay. I've already done so before. It won't change a damn thing. So without bothering with a goodbye, I walk away. Zachary doesn't stop me, doesn't reach out a hand or call out my name. This is as far as he'll allow himself to cross. For all his concerns, between the two of us, he's more familiar with this line we keep between us than I am. He won't intrude far from what those boundaries will allow. But when his voice rings out again, above the din of traffic around us in a last attempt to reach me, it does exactly what he's been reluctant to do.
Hey, Rebecca! About Ashton.
I stop and turn to look at him nevertheless. Even with half a mind to bolt, caught between that small urge to hide until this simply blows over and my own curiosity.
Frankly, I don't really understand what happened back there. I ain't gonna pretend I get the gist of it. I ain't sure if this'll help either, but look, he might be the smartest guy I know, but there are times when things go straight over his head. Way over his head.
Understatement. No malice, no ill will in it. Their words not meant to hurt. Just another truth, because apparently we've got heaps of those to throw around today.
So, I think you should talk to him, at least.
It's a good call.
You don't have to do it, of course. That's just my 2 cents. Ashton can be a bit dense. Sometimes things really work better if you just say it to him.
Zachary ends it with a shrug, as casual and nonchalant as he can manage. The nervous lines of his shoulders tell a different story, however. He wants to say more, but this is all what those metaphorical boundaries we keep will allow. What I will allow for now. In the end, he simply settles for a smile of his own. Reluctant, unwilling to leave things here, but with no expectations of it being returned. He's the one who departs first seconds later, leaving the ghosts of what he said hanging over me. And perhaps it's exactly the fear of being left with these thoughts that leads me to the cafe instead. Less time to think about these as long as I'm moving and in the company of other people. Okay, let's look at our journal entry now that we're all caught up. Look at our beautiful boy. Rebecca was followed by a concerned Zachary after she stormed out of the room. He asked her to take her and Ashton's problems anywhere except in front of their comatose friend. I didn't get that from the chat we had, but before leaving, Zachary advised her to just be straightforward with Ashton. Best advice he could have given. I didn't get the can you please take this outside? A comatose friend here is like dying. Alright, don't need your shenanigans. Luke, I've had a bad day.
Mister, you have until the count of 5 to let me go. And
Mister? I have had the worst day ever, okay? But I'll still apologize to you, whatever. Yeah, I know you like that kind of stuff. Okay, let's... Boof! We never got around it before. Now we may lose that chance altogether. What chance? Oh, plans. To go view places. Okay. Even so, I find myself enjoying this, despite being told it's only half the experience. Little things. You know. Just little things. What's nice? The brief lull the past 2 days has offered is nice while it lasted. Or as nice as it can get while we're playing the long waiting game, teetering between sheer optimism and despair. Her aunt's arrival this morning has dampened the edge to that somewhat, though only by some. The uncertainty's still there, unspoken throughout the brief time we talked, simply hanging stiffly above our heads. Having another person with us helps. However, I can tell the same doubt has crossed her mind the second she saw her in that room. Ashton himself doesn't look too hopeful when he left a night ago. It was a wordless exchange, partly sullied by my lingering anger and his exhaustion, but has left a sullen atmosphere in the room nonetheless.
Like an ugly premonition.
And, as expected, just as things start to settle and a steady rhythm finally worms its way back to my routine, Thursday morning brings further disturbance to the now calm waters. With little ceremony, though still enough to ripple through everything. In retrospect, I really should have seen this coming. Luxburn is a small city, relatively speaking. Okay, is this when Luke shows up being the worst? Yes. Yes, it would be that time. Okay. So we can skip through some of this again, which is grand, as always. We got like a huge chunk of new stuff with Rebecca, which was great. And a gorgeous CG that pandered to my Ashton Isabella heart. Ugh. Okay, we're good. Days later, a friend ends up in the trauma center of the local hospital and fighting for her life. There simply isn't enough time to breathe and get a grip on things. Especially when you're pressing the skip button to skip through things. Oh. Hey Becca, I'll be around Salemwell this evening. Need to meet someone in the area. I might have to drop by yours and Isabella's place after. See ya. Okay, and we also have a journal entry to clear. Okay. Except she won't be there if that scenario ever comes to pass while she's stuck in that hospital. Even after what I heard, or the fact that he detests attending gatherings like this, it's company that counts. We can be miserable together. Right? I'm actually curious to... I mean, I'm gonna do this again. At least one more time. So I'm curious, though, to see what Luke has to say to her, advice-wise, considering what she's seen this time around. So let's go for dinner. We'll see how this plays out. What's the one that kind of gets to her the most? I think this is the positive one, but there's like more nodes on this one, I think. And let's... Oh man, I'm all the way at the end. Gotta start over. Okay. Let's try this one. Yeah. Okay, that's the negative for sure. Okay. So, oops. What did that say? Ashton's neat script lines at surface. Hold on. Hold on, hold on. I want to reload. Okay, so maybe it wasn't that one. How about this one? Oh, really? She had nothing new to say either way. Okay, fine. So we had Ashton's neat script lines at surface. The message he left, short and straight to the point, but not without the underlying hint of friendship. Dropped by earlier, you weren't around. They're easing Belle out of sedatives tomorrow, trying to see if they can take her out of coma. Good news, huh? Her aunt also wants to talk to us, so if you could come to the hospital, that'd be great. Anyway, how are you doing? Call me when you get this. See ya, Ash. That's a nice note. He mentions nothing of the accident or the ongoing investigation, except for a small request from Isabella's aunt for us to visit the next day. Apparently, they're taking her out of her medically induced coma to see if she's improved. Suddenly, it's the closest thing we have to hope right now. I'm surprised they're taking her out of the induced coma so quickly. I can almost hear it in the manner Ashton ends the formal tone in his note when he checks on my well-being at the end. He still has no idea. I mean, Zachary did say, like, he's kind of dumb sometimes. You gotta be overt. Any other day, the former part of his message will likely prod at the piercing envy I've been holding, while the latter will probably send my heart aflutter. Little things from him that I want to mean something more. Yet, this time, only guilt fills me, and my eyes briefly shifts towards Isabella's empty unit. Luke's words repeat inside my head as I do so.
For what it's worth, Rebecca, I didn't ever think that's all there is to you.
Damn.
Why else would I leave my own goddaughter in your care if you're just some lovesick woman?
Have I always been like this?
This selfish? Okay, are we... Okay, we're back. We're back on the path set out for us. The night wears on without further incident, despite the great number of thoughts swimming inside my head. Come morning, there's only a hush. A strange sort of stillness, unlike the ones greeting me every morn. My goodness, what a disaster of a reading I did there. This one's uneasy, tight with anticipation, like a string stretched thin, merely waiting for the proper time to snap. Granted, it doesn't make my day any less pleasant, but the edge is there. It hangs in the hallway. It lingers in the empty unit next to mine. It follows me even as I head out, carrying the same little hope Ashton's note brought last night. I just wish I can easily believe in it. And we're back. It takes a minimum of 21 days for a habit to form, or so claimed a speaker in a conference I once attended. Yet, it only took less than 3 for the hospital's sterile scent to lose its sharp odor. Perhaps less than that for the nurses to start glancing at me with an air of familiarity, for my body to know instinctively where I should head to. It is amazing how quickly that happens. Which turn to take, how far it is from the nearest stairwell, approximately how many steps until I reach her door. 30, to be exact, though I've honestly stopped counting sometime during my second visit. At some point, even the faint beeping from her room has also grown oddly comforting. A strange thing to seek reassurance from. Times like this, however, it's all that we have. Isabella's lucky. By some miracle, by some sheer force of will, she holds on and pushes back just as death pulls. How long will it last, though? Even now, she's still a hair's breadth away from losing that struggle, and no matter how promising today might be, the doubt still runs deep. At least for me it does. Sometimes it's better not to hope too much. Although both Zachary and Ashton don't seem to be of the same mind, with the smiles they each greet me the moment I arrive. A small part of me expects this meeting to be awkward, with Zachary here after he saw me in such a pitiful state, but it is him who first offers me a seat. If he remembers or still has an opinion about what happened 2 days ago, he makes no mention of it again, likely out of some sense of courtesy. He's also just being respectful, it's none of my business, but, I'm still gonna be as nice as I usually am. I suppose this is how we'll keep it together for now? With moments filled with superficial smiles and lukewarm attempts at cordiality.
How is she?
That question, at least, is anything but half-hearted. And as if spurred by it, Ashton looks up. The first time he does so since his brief welcome earlier. His eyes have been glued to the room nearest us, its door only slightly ajar, offering everyone outside nothing but a sparse look of what's inside. All I see in it is uncertainty, yet he stares at it with something close to hopeful, like doing so will summon another miracle from the depths of near impossibility. Bloody. It's all over his face, long before his voice breaks the silence.
Doing okay so far. They've reduced the sedation hours ago, but it'll take a while before we know anything for sure.
The Ashton I know will never subscribe to that kind of false hope. If there's anyone present here who would be, it's Zachary. For reasons no longer unknown to me, he does it anyway.
The nurses are just monitoring her now.
He gestures with his head towards the door, just as one of the said nurses moves past inside.
Her aunt's not in there, though?
Nah, she's speaking with the doctors right now. She'll be back in a few.
She didn't say anything before she left?
Don't know. I arrived just when she stepped out. You're gonna have to ask Ash about that. He came in here hours before I did. She was talking to him about something.
Is that a joke? Ashton arrived earlier than you did?
Yeah, miracle, ain't it?
The miracle of love.
I'm sitting right here, you two.
Yes. A peal of laughter follows his remark, despite ourselves in this mess of a situation. Immediately, the mood around us lifts, if only a little. I doubt it'll shift back to normal entirely. Not when there are still a great number of things we're intentionally leaving unspoken. Amazing how simple this is, though. Pretending everything's the way they used to be, with only a few words.
We ain't the only ones, though. Bella would probably have had plenty to say about it, you know?
She wakes up at 4, Zach. Every day.
Gross.
That's inhuman on so many levels. Besides, none of you can even get out of bed at 6, so get off my case. If Isabella's got a problem with my morning habits, she can complain about it when she's out of coma.
When, not if. Now, of all times, he chooses to be like this. Decides to forgo all the hard truths to chase after that one light at the end of the tunnel. Despite Zachary's reassurances days ago, I'm not foolish enough to carry an expectation as heavy as that. Knowing that she has the chance and taking comfort in the idea is one thing. Clinging onto it and blindly believing what might be improbable is another.
You don't sound too worried about this. Didn't the doctor say there'll be no guarantee? This is just to see if she's improved. That still doesn't mean she'll get better.
Yeah, well, it's not like there's anything we can do about this. She's already there, we're already here. I'd rather not lose sleep over this if I can help it. I've got other things to worry about.
All lies. If he truly believes that, he won't be raking a hand through his hair after that remark. I've seen him do it more times than I can count to know he only does it when he's frustrated. If this truly hasn't already weighed on him, the lines of his shoulders won't have that tired slump, nor in his voice will have that exhausted lilt. It has all been there since this started. It's not going to disappear anytime soon. Because if there's anything all these years has taught me, it's that Ashton hates losing anyone, both in the figurative and literal sense. It happened with his mum. It happened with his da. And with her like this, on the brink and teetering between life and death, he'll try everything to keep her. You'd think the world would be much more forgiving once people like him starts thinking in such a way. But it is a harsh place still, and sometimes, as good as a notion it is, there are things that are simply out of our control. When it reminds us of it, it does so brusquely, in the form of another voice piercing through the dense silence in the hall.
Miss Santos! Miss Santos!
Uh-oh.
Get rapid response here. Call for Doctors Nicholas and Beatrix Stat.
Uh-oh. Tension returns to the hallway in an instant. Oh, that's not a good sound. For a couple of agonizing minutes, only the sounds behind her room reverberates into the hall. A calm voice urgently calling orders, 2 sets of feet moving about, the rapid beeping of the machines inside. Suddenly, merely standing in the hall soon proves to be smothering. Too small, too tight, too stifling as the rest of the world fades into nothing, and only the room in front of us matters. Next to Zachary and I, Ashton now stands rigid. The lines of his jaw are clenched firmly, while he gapes at the tiny opening in the door with wide eyes. I haven't even noticed when he has risen from his seat, but a struggle is clear on his face. Though before he can take a single step forward, Zachary's hand lands on his shoulder, holding him back. Despite his own worries, he is nothing but forbearing when he mutters his reassurances.
Chill, man. Let them do their work. Leave it to them. She's in good hands, so please, give those guys inside a little credit. They were able to save her the first time, yeah? It's not a code. She hasn't coded yet.
Almost as soon, as if to confirm it, the loudspeakers crackle to life, the broadcast echoing Zachary's words throughout the whole hospital.
Rapid response, room 49. Rapid response, room 49. Paging Dr. Nicholas Vogel and Dr. Beatrix Vogel. Rapid response. Please head to room 49, stat.
Is there a married couple of doctors here? Because that's awesome. The message blasts on for another minute before it finally ceases. It takes less than that for the hospital's emergency response team to arrive, but their presence does nothing to ease the disquiet in each of us. Ashton's most of all. The minute a nurse shuts the door firmly on us, he releases the breath he's been holding. Along with it are every shard of hope he'd allow himself to carry. Now crushed under the weight of what we've just seen and every expectations he carried. It's not surprising that when the air around us becomes too heavy to bear for someone like him, he's the one who first steps out. Like every time this has happened.
I'm going to step out for a while. I need some air.
I think that's fair.
Ashton?
Without another word, he gently brushes Zachary's hand off his shoulder and leaves. Not to run away. Never to run away. He's still too stubborn for that. His pride won't let him when he knows he hasn't exhausted his options. This is so he can force what remains of his wits into some semblance of order away from prying eyes. And though Ash doesn't say a single thing, Zachary understands this need quite well. It's a place he's been to numerous times. It's one he requested of us for reasons I've yet to know and he's yet to tell me. Hence, he refrains from voicing these thoughts or stopping the younger man once he removes himself from the hall. There's still, however, an undeniable edge to his voice when he urges me to do the opposite, an underlying anxiety beneath that smiling facade. One I allow myself to return in spite of the hesitation his next words spur.
You should go after him.
What? And leave you here?
I can wait.
I can wait.
And I don't think those guys in there will be coming out anytime soon. You'll just get bored. Besides, he listens to you.
Before, perhaps.
He still will. Nothing about that has changed.
He's a grown man, not a baby. I don't have to console him every time something upsets his manly ego.
What upset his manly ego here? Doubt must have surfaced in my face for all my efforts to mask it, because the next thing I know, he's laughing. Tired, though lighter than I've heard from him these past few days, like a heaviness temporarily lifting. I wonder how much this whole thing has taken a toll on him. Strangely, that fact has never occurred to me until now. But even then, he continues as if nothing's wrong. Now, along with reluctance, swims a tinge of guilt. All this time, I've been looking at how this has only affected both Ashton and I when Zachary is in as much need of comfort. After all, he understands Isabella in ways neither the rest of us can.
But you know it can be one sometimes. Go on. I'll let you two know if anything changes here. And I get the sense you two still have a lot of, things to, talk about.
Zachary, you're too good for the world. That much is still true. But I know Ashton. He's not a man who expresses himself freely. He will not yield until he's ready, and this one he might not be too willing to share yet. Still, a huge part of me wishes to go to him. Sometimes I resent myself for getting caught between making such calls. Well, like I said before, I'm gonna go through this a couple times. I'll go after him this time. Next time I'll give him some space. I'm gonna hang out with Best Boy. Yeah, he appreciates it. Although, before a single excuse forms in my head, Zachary makes that decision for me. Already, he's showing me a knowing smirk. It spreads across his face the moment I look up. With a chuckle and a casual wave of his hand, he gestures for me to leave.
Don't worry about it. Check on him. He needs somebody to do that for him.
I'd knock some sense into him myself if I can. But like I said, he listens when it's you.
We'll see about that. Thanks, Zachary. I'll be back soon.
Nah, take your time. But just remember what I told you before.
He has known prior to making that suggestion. In the same way that sleaze Luke reads it in my face with much ease. Where I'll always go, who I'll often pick when faced with a similar choice, or how it'll bother me if I don't. The answer is a habit now, after uttering the same thing for so many years. But what drives it is not important. Feelings are irrelevant at present, the whole of it unwarranted, in fact. That's what Zachary has been trying to get at all this time, isn't it? I've been too furious to understand, busy swaying between anger and my own affections since that night. Because at the core of it, we're still friends, aren't we? There'll be time to think about these matters later. For now, as I leave Zach in search of him, I'll be what he needs me to be.